of mine to the show, and to really discuss about entrepreneurship and why in the world did I choose Ravi and Shabnam to be a part of this discussion. I am full of great ideas, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves to you, and then we'll get into the discussion of how I think their brilliance is going to help with entrepreneurship, but also being able to retain nurses in the process. So we'll start with Shabnam. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the group.
Hello, thank you for having me, Noelle. I'm really honoured to be here today. I was actually wondering why I'm here, because I don't come from a nursing background. I come from a very corporate background. I trained as a therapist, and now I work as a coach, and I help entrepreneurs, business owners, CEOs with their mindset issues. So anything when it comes to what they believe and what they are struggling with and not understanding how to move forwards, I help with the mental and emotional issues that they go through. So that's my background in a nutshell. I could go on for ages. I'll let Ravi introduce himself now.
What's going on, guys? So, as Noelle said, my name is Ravi Rajani. What I do is I help leaders and entrepreneurs become confident speakers so they can do cool things like deliver impactful presentations and build a magnetic personal brand using video. So that's what I do. Once again, nothing to do with nurses, but I'm sure we're going to give some value. Don't worry.
You're going to give a ton of value. And and for those of you that are tuning in for the first time, please make sure you hit like down below and comment from where you're calling in from or responding in from. We'd love to hear where you are. And also, as we start to move along in the dialogue, if you have any questions, please make sure you list them below, because we'll pay attention to the comments and we'll make sure that we address any questions that you may have for us. And for those that don't know me, that may be logging in for the first time, my name's Noelle Coles, and I am a new grad retention and leadership vitality coach. And I am in the process of going through building a new grad retention program designed for leaders and how to be able to retain the staff that they have. So for those that know me, and those that are going to know me pretty soon, I'm always full of harebrained ideas and how we can all connect. And I do honestly believe that regardless of title or role that you're in, there's a way that everybody has a connection to each other and how they can bring value and insight. And when I started thinking about nurses, and really I follow Ravi and Shabnam often through LinkedIn, and for those of you that haven't followed them yet, please check onto their profiles. They're both amazing individuals. A bunch of light bulbs kept coming off into my head, and I said, there's a way to tie the two of you into a bedside nurse. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm going to kind of share my thoughts and ask you guys a bunch of questions and really pry into where you're at now, what you're doing, and really how I think it's going to help. So my whole part of doing the show today is that nurses are awesome at the bedside. They do well, they speak and do what they know. And some of them, you know, for those of you that have been in the business or, you know, old enough to understand MacGyver, right? Like we do a lot of, Shabnam, you're laughing, and I'm glad that you know who MacGyver is.
Of course I do.
That's awesome.
Who's MacGyver, man?
You don't know who MacGyver is?
No, well, don't ask him. We know there's an age difference. There's a massive difference in what Ravi knows.
Let's not get ageist. We're only 3 minutes in.
All right, okay. so I'll explain to you who MacGyver is and why nurses are like the masters of MacGyver. MacGyver was a TV sitcom show probably back in the 80s, early 90s, who no matter what he did, he could find a way to take a paper clip and blow up a building with it, right? He could find like a pen and use this. Amazing. So
is it British or US?
No, US.
US. Okay. Literally, MacGyver could work his way out of a building where there were people outside. He was trapped inside, and he had just a paperclip, like Noelle said, and he could figure a way out. The MacGyver, legend. You missed out.
So this is, and if you see nurses in healthcare and at the bedside, this is nursing. They come up with so many ways to do things at the bedside to improve patient care. And some of these nurses have had the thought process to take this innovation and move on, and others tend to just keep doing what they're doing and struggle with the piece of when you have an idea, but you are in one set of mindset at the bedside, it is really difficult to step out of the mindset as a bedside nurse to understand how in the world can I honestly make a difference? What do you mean I can invent something and bring it back? And it really is a mindset shift. And a lot of nurses also, and I look to myself too, we've been through so much in our careers, being critical care background, taking care of patients. We see death all the time. And it's really hard to take a step back and understand, how can I do this if I'm still doing this? And to sort of create what they know and bring it back into the bedside. And I'll tell you one thing too, Ravi, and I've learned that one of my favorite classes in college that you just have to do prerequisites is public speaking. I had a blast with that. And the one thing that we don't know how to do well is actually get in front of a crowd and have a conversation. So I was at, I'm going to tell a quick story, and then I'm going to lead into really getting how I think you guys would be able to help sort of bring out not even just nurses, but anyone looking to develop their own business, because you're kind of in a shell. You're in a shell of fear, anxiety. You think that everyone else has the idea, and they probably do, and you think you're going to steal it. And that'll lead into really, Shabnam, I'd like you to talk about what imposter syndrome is. And then, oh my gosh, stage fright. How do we talk about this? So I was at a hackathon a few years ago, and it was the first ever hackathon in Boston that was run by Northeastern University. And it was amazing. And I was like, a hackathon? What's a hackathon? And these are healthcare individuals that go that have a brilliant idea to see if they can actually do it. Well, a group of us came up with a great idea, and then you had to go on stage. And me being the social person that I am, they're like, oh, you can go speak. I'm like, okay. Yeah, no, it didn't really work out the way you think it is, because you're not trained to be able to have those conversations, to be able to speak about what it is that you do. Long story short, this group ended up winning second place. One of the nurses from this group took an idea and patented it, and is now developed her own business, but came back to me to help coach her through the process of, I've never done this before. How do I do what I do at the bedside and bring it here? And how do I get up and talk to people about this? So I'll start with you, Shabnam. What are some thoughts when we look at getting nurses or anyone in the business that are willing or wanting to start their own business, and help them develop a mindset of going from one area of thinking to another?
So this is the thing. I don't come from a nursing background. I come from a very corporate background, but I've transitioned from very regimented sort of way of working, and nursing is 10 times that, because you have a code of ethics, you have so many policies and procedures, and you work in a certain kind of way. And I have a lot of medical professionals in the family. I'm Asian. We have lots of doctors and people in the medical profession in our family. And one of the things that sort of comes up for everybody is that when you move to entrepreneurship, when you're trying to start a business, all of a sudden you're responsible for yourself. Where you've been in an environment where there are set policies, procedures, code of ethics, and you need to be responsible for your behavior and your actions in a certain way. So even though, and this is what I think your nurses will really resonate with, is that even though at the time you feel that everything you're doing is because you feel you need to do it because of the code of ethics and the constraints and the boundaries that are put around you because of the policies and procedures. And I have a lot, but they're down to actually your personal strengths. And those are what you bring to entrepreneurship. What everybody needs to be mindful of is that when you move from that, when you transition from being in that environment to then being an entrepreneur or a business owner, that now you don't have anybody else to look up to say, am I doing it right? Is this within the boundaries? And being very mindful of, actually, you know what, you've come with a set of skills and you are very, very good at what you do. And what you're bringing now is all of those skills and all of those behaviors into your entrepreneurial journey. And the person that you need to look up to is yourself. So the only person you need permission from is yourself. And that's kind of like a very scary place to be, because all of a sudden you don't have somebody else. You don't have a meeting with a senior leader or a manager who says, yes, you're ticking all the boxes, you're doing everything right. Mm-hmm. You're the person who has to tick those boxes. So it can be very, very, and from, coming from a corporate background where, all of these things were in place, not as much as it is for somebody who's in the healthcare business, because at the end of the day, the people that you're dealing with, your customers, are people who are, they're putting their lives in your hands. It's a whole big, there's a difference in the enormity of your responsibility, yet the skills that you're bringing, and I know this from people that I know in my family who are in the healthcare profession, is that you undermine that. You forget that actually, you know what, you have so many skills, and your level of resilience is so much higher than the average person, because you see life and death every single day. Mm-hmm. And to be able to still go, I've asked my nephew, who's a doctor, I was like, how do you manage this every single day? And he doesn't realize how he's managing it. He's got all his different coping mechanisms, and he carries on. But what keeps him going is his focus on, he's there to provide a service. He's there to help people. And that's what I think, is very important for any of the nurses, or even any other entrepreneur who's just come into this whole new journey at the beginning, is to remember what your purpose is, and remember that you had the skills in your previous role, which has helped you jump to this. And now you don't have anybody else to go back to and say, well, this is how I'm doing it, and they're going to tick off the boxes. You're the person. And this is when your own self-compassion comes in, where you need to say, oh yeah, you did a good job. Okay, you didn't do so well today, but that's okay. You realized it. And these are the things you can do to make it better. So I think it's a very, very,
I love that.
It's the hardest thing you can do, is to turn around and realize that actually you're responsible for yourself now. You don't have somebody else to go to and say, this is what I'm doing. Can you give me a little tick and tell me, can you give me a performance review and say, I'm doing a great job? No, you need to do that. And you need to be compassionate as you would be to somebody who was working for you and you were a leader, and you would say to them, great job. This is what you did great. These are things where you need to improve, and this is what you need to do. And do that for yourself, because I haven't come from, like I said, I haven't come from a nursing background. I've come from a very corporate background, and I've been very, very critical of myself, and harsh as anything. And what stopped me from progressing was that harsh, critical self-talk that stopped me from moving forward, because I kept on saying, you're not doing a good job. And I know from my own personal experience, my partner, he's been through cancer. Just last week, he's had another operation, and the people, the nurses and the staff, how much they put into providing a service, which is beyond just like doing a job. They're trying to make you feel so much better. They're trying to make your life better. And yet they probably go home and think, oh, I don't think I did a good job. You did. And you need to recognize that.
You do. And I think you bring up such a great point about strength and really the resilience in it, because you have to know that if you've got something and you have a passion, it doesn't always just have to be in exactly what you do. You can explore that and bring it out in different ways. And there's so many that want to be able to do that. And Ravi, I'm going to touch base a little bit on you too. and to talk about, how you got to where you are now, and just the power of voice and how important I think that is, because those that talk about that have done acting or have gone through public speaking and things like that, it's not easy. And it's not easy to take the passion, have a different mindset, and then all of a sudden execute this message. And actually, before I get into, I do have a funny story to tell you. Before I get into how you can take the voice out. And I'm going to use this example with Rallis. In the beginning, when I started working with Rallis, I was making these videos. I'm like, I have no idea how to say what I do. And every time I see him, I get stage fright, and he kind of chuckles. But one of the videos I made, I sent him the wrong one. And it was me. I probably did it at least 500 times because I was looking at myself saying, okay, I have a message. No, that's not good enough. Oh my God, Noelle, your hair's funny. Your voice is blah, blah, blah. And I did this video and I was like, blah, wrong video. And I sent that one to him. So I'm reading like a script in front of me and I'm like, hi, blah, blah, blah. My name's Noelle. And then blah, I get stuck. And that's exactly what I did in the video to myself. And I sent it to him. So, and then you feel like, oh God, I can't do this. And you get embarrassed. But that's where I look towards you, Ravi. And again, this is why I think outside the box is you can be confident in what you do and how you do it. Your mind may not have enough confidence, but if you can talk through it, you sort of build that mindset and then you can go into what it is that you're doing. So I'm going to hand it off to you to tell me about how you got to where you're at and how do you feel, or how do you think that being able to have the power of the voice and speak, how that can help somebody come out of their shell and get into the, working as a small business by themselves.
Yeah, sure. So, okay, you mentioned quite a few cool things there. Let's start with the story. So for me personally, I didn't get my start as a professional speaker or having given one of those TED Talks that goes viral. For me, I actually got my start when I was a kid, 8 or 9 years old, I must have been, when I started doing dance, not the cool type, not the ones that you want to shout to your friends about when you're an 8-year-old dude in school. And later on, I stumbled into acting when I was a teen. And as I started getting into my early 20s, people would ask me, they say, Rav, are you going to take this speaking, acting, being on stage, media thing seriously? You're going to take it forward as a career? And in my head, I was like, classic young gun, overconfident. I was like, nah, I want to go make some money. So I went over into the world of investment banking, and I used to work at Citibank on the trading floor up until 2016. Then I left that world and I entered the world of, doing TV over here in the UK, radio, different entrepreneurial pursuits, coaching, building a personal brand, and sales leadership in various early growth startups. And over time, I realized I would listen to webinar, business presentation after presentation. And I would be like, man, it's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it, which takes me to what I'm doing currently, which is, as I said earlier, helping leaders and entrepreneurs become confident speakers. So to tackle that point about one tip that you said about, correct me if I'm wrong, was the question how to use your voice to grow your business?
Yes.
Here's the thing. I heard this a year ago and it's stuck with me ever since. And it's the best products don't win, the best known products win. And I think the interesting thing is speaking and communication is so important, because if you're a small business and you're trying to get funding and you're in a room full of 8 investors and somebody says, tell me about what you do and the problem you solve, and you've not got the ability to articulately communicate that message and in a way which is compelling, you're not going to be able to get money for your business. And if you can't get money, you can't grow. If you can't grow, the cycle just goes on. And what's quite interesting for me is, everybody knows, I think, we talk about it a lot. Storytelling is super important. But I think one thing that we forget to do in the business world is we have a corporate mask when we speak. Mm-hmm. So we're like, oh, hey, how are you? My name is, and it's like, no, you don't sound like that though. It's like, I compare it to when I was a kid. So the phone would go ring, 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 ring. And my mom would be like, oh, hello, darling, how are you? I'm like, Mom, you don't sound like that. Like, what is that voice? And it's the phone voice. And, we've all done it. We have all done it where we don't connect with the audience because we are speaking in a way which is not actually who we are. And in 2020 and beyond, people could smell that. So actually learning to be conversational and just to have a chat is really, the art of being able to feel comfortable in your own skin, so you can really do that and ultimately build connections with your true connection with your customer and your audience, so you can ultimately grow your business and start planting the seeds and grow your relationships. Super cool.
And I love that. And so I'm not actually seeing the comments. I'm sorry, I keep looking down to see see what everyone's saying, and I'm not seeing that. So if Rallis or Joe can chime in, I'd love to. And I just realized we've been talking so well, we're already halfway through the show. I want to do a little bit of Would You Rather. And then I want to come back and touch base on that, because connecting that to nursing leaders is so pivotal to be able to communicate back to nurses at the bedside. And this is where I talk about the link and the connection to what you both do and the importance of being able to find mentors outside of healthcare, find mentors outside of what you do, because exactly what you just said, Ravi, if leaders have the ability, and this is one of the teachings that I do in my courses, if leaders can connect to staff and find that purposeful connection to what holds value and meaning to them, they can bring out that knowledge, that experience, that passion of, hey, you've got a really great idea, let's run with this. And it doesn't take but a minute of a few conversations to have to get to know your staff to see what they're invested in. And so this is something I want to, ask the group too that's out there. What methods can you recommend, and what do you do to be able to get in touch with the people that work for you in order to bring value to them? Because that's also going to bring retention back into the workforce. If I've got a great idea and I think that this can make a change to take care of a patient, then as a leader, you need to attach yourself to that. You need to be the mentor to your staff to gravitate onto that and say, hey, you've got a great idea. Let me put you in touch with so-and-so. One, they're going to see that you're invested in them. There's a value that you have for them as an individual. And this is where individualism comes from. And they're going to want to stay because you're interested. They have a great idea. They're going to develop that concept and they're going to bring it back to the organization that you work for and continue to talk with you about how we can improve where we are. And that part of the we is going to keep them to where they're at. So I'm going to just sort of look down a little bit. Shabnam, I see your dog in the corner. How cute. And Joe, thank you for commenting. For some reason, I'm still not seeing everybody else's comments, so I apologize for that. But we're going to sort of break up the group right now, and I'm going to do some would you rather questions.
Hit me.
All right, I got you. So, all right, I will clearly start with Ravi because he seems super wicked excited about this. So, Ravi, would you rather communicate only in emoji or never be able to text with anyone ever again?
Oh, that's a good one.
Well, I can still use the phone. I can still use what? Or is it just text only?
It's text. So you have to find a way to communicate with emojis. So you figure that out. You either communicate only through emojis or you don't text at all. So I would say if we're going with the text,
I would use the phone. I would just say pick up the phone. But if we're going text nothing or emoji only.
Yes. If you can only communicate through emoji, what would you do? Never communicate or only emoji?
I mean, if it's no communication or communication, I mean, I'm going to choose communication. So let's choose emojis,
So you're going to figure out how to do it with emoji. Yeah, I guess I would.
I'd figure it some way without being weird, creepy, and over the top. Because emojis are just like, can you imagine? Like, yeah, I think you could probably do it. But reluctantly, I'm saying emoji.
I love it. What about you, Shabnam?
Well, my son, I think about a year ago, I texted a couple of emojis to him and a couple of emojis to my son, to my dad. And then he sent me a text back saying, Mum, don't send that emoji, it's really creepy, it means this. So what it transpired was that, you know, I was being pervy with my dad and very creepy with my son. So I think as long as you know what the context is, go with the emojis. But, you know, you need to keep up with the times. And I'm clearly not, because I had to be reminded that I was being creepy and pervy at the same time using emojis. So yeah, I preferred words. I prefer words.
Okay, I would totally agree with that. All right, I'm going to do one more. All right, this one is so gross. Would you rather vomit on your hero or have your hero vomit on you?
Oh, I'd rather have Ryan Reynolds vomit on me all day long. Yeah.
Oh.
I'll tell you why.
Yeah, please do justify that.
Wait, hear me out. So, I'm a big Ryan Reynolds fan, as you can tell, because I just said that. But if I vomit on him, I have to then explain, oh my God, you're like, you know, you're the dude, you're the bromance, you're the guy crush that I have. You have to do the explaining. If he vomits on me, he's going to be, oh dude, I'm so sorry. Like, he's going to have to instigate the conversation. He's going to feel super awkward. So I'll be like, I'm choosing that all day long.
That's awesome.
That'll be a better story as well, to say Ryan Reynolds vomited on me, you know? So.
Totally. I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. So,
anyway. I love it. I probably would say the same. I'd rather be vomited on and just tell a really great story than I would be embarrassed of like then
that's
vomiting on somebody. Because because really like I'm not a big deal. And if you have somebody who's your hero, that's a total big deal. That's a better story to tell.
No problem.
Yeah, I suppose that's the best way to make a positive out of a very, very bad situation.
I love
Somebody vomited on you. Yeah, great.
Oh, that's awesome. So I want to go back into the discussion, and Shabnam, you brought up a great discussion in one of your threads I want to talk about, which is imposter syndrome. And I think that I've heard that a lot over the last couple of months, and you know what that means, but until you actually dive into what exactly does imposter syndrome mean, but to yourself, I think it's such an important topic to talk about, because I feel that in the world of trying to start your own business with great ideas that you have, this becomes a true reality to what you're doing. And I can use myself as an example. You know, there's so many leadership coaches out there. There's so many people and leaders that talk about retention and talk about recruitment and how we do that. And sometimes I find myself with like, oh my gosh, can I really, but what makes me different? How do I figure this out? Because I feel like I'm taking that person's idea or that person. And then sometimes it really puts people back into their shell. So what are your thoughts around imposter syndrome, and how do you think we can help individuals kind of see past that?
There's a great saying, and I can't remember it for the life of me, and I've quoted it so many times, that it's all the brilliant people in the world who consider themselves an imposter and all the fools who think they're great. So if you are actually sitting there thinking you're not good enough, you're not doing a good enough job, you shouldn't be doing what you're doing, more than likely you're already far ahead of those people who don't know what they're doing. So when these imposter syndromes, imposter syndrome or these imposter thoughts come in, it's because we have such high standards. We've created this benchmark that we need to sort of reach to be able to say, oh yes, I'm doing a good job. But where that came from is what we need to question. It's like, is it coming from our parents? Is it coming from, something we read or something we saw? Where are these idealistic visions of who we are meant to be coming from? So these feelings that we have are just questioning us all the time, that, making us think about whether we're good enough to do the job that we are doing. And if you're questioning that, you have the level of self-awareness that majority of people don't have. There's the opposite of, so whenever my clients talk about imposter syndrome and they talk about their feelings, and there's the opposite of the imposter syndrome, which is the Dunning-Kruger effect, where there are people who know nothing, yet they put themselves across as experts because they think they're so brilliant at what they do. And if you are so critical of yourself and you're questioning what you do, it means you have a far greater level of self-awareness. But if you stop yourself from doing the things you need to do because you're still saying to yourself you're not good enough, that's where the issue comes in. And you need to remind yourself of looking back at, well, every time you thought you weren't good enough and then you did something, did 100 people come and knock on your door and say, hey, what are you doing? Who do you think you are? Get out of here. That doesn't happen. That thought and those feelings come from our own insecurities, and those insecurities and those feelings come from our upbringing and what we've, sort of taken in and absorbed from our environment, our parents, our upbringing, schools, media, whatever it is. And you need to question that. Is it actually really true? Look at your own achievements in your lifetime. If you've, for your community, nurses, who have the most, I have so much respect for nurses. I've spent so much time in hospitals not as a patient, but as a loved one of a patient, and seeing the amount of resilience they have, seeing the amount of skill they have, and how much grace they have in the way that they deliver the things that they deliver. Yet these are the same people who are thinking, I don't think I'm doing a good enough job. So-and-so might think I'm rubbish or I'm not good enough. Where's that coming from? Stop for a second and think. These thoughts and these words and these dialogues going on in your brain, where did that actually originate from? Because it's not you. Because you've been working really, really hard all through your life trying to prove that you are good enough, that you are good. So that's what's been pushing you ahead. But pushing you ahead with this kind of like, you need to reach this level to get that gold star to say, yes, well done, now you're good enough. But you don't get that. And that's so crushing. And I find it very, it's heartbreaking to see so many passionate, very, very talented people who don't push themselves forward because they feel that they're still not good enough. And what you need to remind yourself is that, according to who? Right. Where does that voice, question yourself, where does that voice come from? Who's asking you you're good enough still? Right. Where are these imposter thoughts coming from? Because it's not you. It's something or some experiences that you've had during your lifetime that have made you question whether you're good enough. You see people working really, really hard trying to achieve this level of expertise, but nobody's told them they need to. I know this from nurses, and I've read some of your posts, and I've read lots of nurses talking about how hard they work and what they do, and there's this striving for perfection, realizing that perfection isn't an actual thing. Right. What you have is obviously more responsibility around lives, and this is such a powerful position to be in, which gives you a lot of either a lot of negative talk or positive say, hey, look at you saved a life today, well done you, or you didn't do a good job today. Who are you? Who do you think you are? But the question is this, it's like, where are these questions coming from? Because we all make mistakes, and you've put yourself in a position where you are far more accountable for major things in life, which a lot of people working in the offices or working in entrepreneurship don't have. And so when you mentioned this about being entrepreneurship when it comes to nurses, it's like you have like the best material for being a resilient entrepreneur, because you need to be able to take on the knocks and realize that you're going to make mistakes. It's okay. Right. You've already been through life and death situations. You've been through really, really difficult situations. When you're an entrepreneur, it's so different. Depending on what you do and how you're doing it, it's so different. You have, you're cut from a different cloth. from the majority of the population. Not everybody goes and says, look, hey, I want to be a nurse, I want to be a doctor, I want to be in healthcare, I want to be looking after people. That is, that is a whole different level of resilience that the majority of the population don't have.
And see, you get a big round of applause for that one, because I'm telling you, you don't have to be.
Coco's clapping.
I love it. That just proves the point. You don't have to be in healthcare to find and have these discussions like we're having right now. Like you're not in a healthcare background, but your point is so well taken and it's so valid that it's going to impact and it affects everybody no matter what you do. And I gotta entertain Ravi over there for a second too, because I gotta ask you too, how does, when you talk about teaching people how to speak, and I love watching you because you're so animated all the time. And if I could just like implant your brain into me sometimes when I have to do promo videos like I did before coming on here, and I'm like, ugh, and I talk all the time, but yet I freeze. What are your thoughts around imposter syndrome with you?
Well, I'll give you an example. So that is the number one fear, or I would say challenge, that my clients have. There's two main things: fear of judgment and imposter syndrome. Now, with the imposter syndrome, what's interesting is, if you look at, I think Shabnam said that some of the most successful people in the world, like, check this. Howard Schultz, CEO of Starbucks, Serena Williams, who else? Ryan Reynolds, Tom Hanks, Ariana Huffington. They've all, you could check it out on Google, right? Google don't lie.
Yeah.
Go check it out on Google.
Google. Yeah.
They talk about it all the time. And now here's the way I think about it. There's a difference in having a moment where you feel a lack of confidence, or a moment of anxiety, or a moment of stress, or a moment of feeling like an imposter, versus being an imposter, versus being anxious, being depressed. So I think there's a clear definition, I suppose, what's the right word? There's the clear gap, or what's the right word? There's the clear difference. Oh my God, that took a while, right?
Yes, gap, difference. I hear you, I'm rolling with this one.
You see what I mean? And I think it's about really, really understanding that everybody has those moments. Think about it. Beyonce in 2003 invented an alter ego called Sasha Fierce to help her get into her most magnetic self when she hits the stage. Beyonce. She talks about it with Oprah. You can go check it out on YouTube. Super interesting interview. And it helps her not be somebody she's not necessarily. It's about bringing your most magnetic characteristics to the surface, so in the moment you can step into that version of you. And it's interesting, Adele, she's been known to vomit before she gets on stage because she has such bad performance anxiety. Rihanna, she takes a shot of alcohol. Don't quote me on that one, but go search for it. But what's interesting is we think that it's just us. Everybody has felt it at some point. Everybody will continue to feel it. It's like, I think it's about the normalization of it. But Rollis has just messaged and said, what are your top tips on nurses who want to present their business idea to others? Well, I'll give you an example. Imagine going to a networking event pre-COVID, and you go over and you see somebody with a badge, and you're like, oh, Chris, oh, hey, Chris, I see you're from BGC frameworks or whatever. What do you do? And then Chris goes, oh, I do this, that. And then Chris goes, Sandra, why don't you tell me a little bit about you? And you go, okay, so, well, I was a nurse, but now I'm doing this thing. And it's like, it's in beta, it's in MVP right now. It's not really out there, but we're helping biotech businesses just go to the next level. You know what I mean, Chris? And Chris is like, yeah, I need a drink. And then he walks up, okay, and you sit there 45 seconds later being like, why can I not clearly and articulately explain what I do, who I serve, and the tangible outcome that I provide? So one tip is, if you can get down your statement of, the classic LinkedIn, I help insert target market do, become, achieve, increase, whatever it might be, insert the tangible outcome. Okay. So for example, I help leaders and entrepreneurs become confident speakers so they can deliver high impact presentations. Or quite simply, I help leaders and entrepreneurs become confident speakers. And that gives the carrot, that gives the hook for somebody to go, oh, tell me more. What types of leaders? Who have you worked with? Versus trying to verbal vomit everything in 10 seconds and then like, whoa, Sandra, slow down, you know? So
totally.
I think it's about really being able to articulately explain what you do and who you serve, and really understanding that that statement is about the hook. You know, it's the carrot. It's not having to give everybody everything in one go. And getting very clear around who you serve is super important as well, right? Because we can't be everything to everyone. And you know, I think that's one of the biggest problems at the beginning, is what we try to do.
That's so true. I'm going to give you an applause for that one too. That was awesome.
Let's do it.
It's so true, because you have to, I mean, it really, sometimes it's not what you say, but it's how you say what you say. And we all stumble at some points, but you're right. I think the more you practice and the more you get that down, I find it too with myself. You have got to say it over and over and over again. And perhaps even videos, I have to say it over and over again, even in a video, because it's interesting. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, is that what I hear people say about me to an audience or to a crowd and engaging them, I feel like I can feel that. But when I actually watch myself, I'm like, what are they talking about? I don't know how people are like, and this goes back to like being really hard on yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like I can feel it sometimes and I'll go at it. And then if I actually watch myself, I was like, oh my God, what on earth was I thinking, doing, saying, and how I did it? But yet the audience loves it. And my focus was always on me, looking at me and not actually looking at the audience and what people like. And from that, I would change my way of doing it and not capture an audience, when technically some people, or like myself, you should just almost be who you are. Absolutely. Forget about what you think your stigma is, how you look, or what you do, and just be who you are. And I think as leaders, if we can allow staff to be who they are in their environment, capture what they love and want to do and bring that to fruition, they're not going to go anywhere. They're going to stay, and they're going to love to stay, and they're going to want to give you more thoughts and ideas about what they do and how they do it. Another thing comes to mind as I'm saying this, as we're talking, Shabnam, and I keep thinking Santa Claus, because Ravi's like, what on earth are you talking about? You had made a comment about believing in Santa and the Tooth Fairy, and I really want to bring this, and as we start to look at the last 10 minutes of the show, I really want to take this thought process and bring it back into nurses and leaders to see through what you're about to tell them how believing makes a tremendous difference, because this impacted me. So I'm going to pass it off to you.
Oh, you know what? Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you read that and it had an impact, because it's one of the biggest things that made an impact on me, and which this is the core of what I do. And when you were talking about when you're doing your talks with everybody else and you're thinking about yourself, when you take it beyond yourself and start thinking about your higher purpose and the people who are out there who actually need to hear what you have to say and are going to get the nuggets of wisdom from what you share, which you think is everyday normal knowledge, but it's actually not, because it's what's normal for you, not normal for them. They don't know this. So when you share it, you're actually doing a massive service to people. So going back to Santa Claus, so my post was about, when we were younger, we either, we believed in Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, Jack Frost, all those kind of things. I had my sister scared of Jack Frost, because I said to her, when we used to share a bedroom, I said, he sleeps in that corner, he comes at night. She used to shit her pants at night. And, we've made amends since, but, I caused a lot of trauma as a child because of that. But as a child, you believe these things because, we get them from our parents, from society, from school. Santa Claus is real, the tooth fairy is real, and all those kind of things. But at one point, all of us at some point realized that Santa Claus is just some fat dude with a fake beard who comes to the shopping mall and you sit on his lap and he gives you a present, right? And after that, that's it. Santa Claus is no longer real. No matter what anybody told you, you will never, ever believe that Santa is real. I'm sorry, Coca-Cola adverts, but that's the truth, isn't it? Once you, for some reason, something happens, you catch your parents putting the money underneath your pillow when you think the tooth fairy is giving you the dollar or the pound for your tooth, and you realize actually, hold on a second. So Santa's not real. That's just a fat dude with a fake beard. Tooth fairy is just my mum or dad put money underneath. That's it. It doesn't matter how many books you read, the adverts you see on TV, the films you watch, all the great stuff. You are never going to believe in Santa or the tooth fairy again. And it's the same thing. Right now, you may not believe that you are good enough to step out of the role as a nurse in healthcare, doing what you do, because that is what you have been conditioned to believe over all the years of service and all the years of working that you've done. But as soon as you step out of it and you do something different and you see that, hold on a second, look, I'm no longer, tied down to this institution. I'm doing something differently, and you get paid for it. You do something, you get asked to do a LinkedIn talk on a live with Noelle or something else. All of a sudden you're like, hold on a second. I'm not just this person. I have these other skills too. So therefore I'm not this. That's no longer true. And you can create new beliefs. And that's the thing. Everything that you believe about yourself that's stopping you from doing what you want to do, what you feel you're not capable of doing right now, you need to remember that you believed in Santa and Santa wasn't real. So right now you may believe that you can't do it. Go and do something different. Go and do something different, even if it feels really, really uncomfortable and horrible. Do it, because what that's going to give is feedback to your brain saying, hold on a second, there is something alternative to what I've been believing all this time. And once it's like stretching that comfort zone. And once you step out of it and you think, oh, okay, so I'm not just a nurse. By the way, I don't believe nurses are just nurses. I think you're superheroes. But, I'm not just a nurse. I can do this, I can do that. So it's stepping out of what you've been conditioned to believe all your life and trying on something new. Because once you do, then you'll think, hold on, look back, and you think, I can't believe that's all I believed in before. I mean, come on. Do you really believe in Santa?
Yes.
I think here in the UK,
you're right.
We don't even know. Ravi, are we going to have Christmas this year? I don't know what's happening now.
Don't know. We're going into a lockdown. I said lockdown. Definitely not a lockdown. There's no luck involved with this. Lockdown. Lockdown. Tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going into lockdown. Okay. So, yeah. Who knows? Tomorrow. Who knows? But we'll see. We'll see if there's a Christmas over here in the UK.
Yeah,
love it. But I love that concept, because that concept resonates with so many people. And it really just, anyone can relate no matter what profession you're in, or even as an individual. And like I said, that resonated so much with me. And I want to, and I'm so sorry to the audience, again, #rookie right here. I don't see, any comments. I'm trying to look down. My screen is frozen. I am so sorry. I'm going to have to now invest in the 2 live screens. That's it. I need equipment, Rollis. I need equipment.
I'll be with you, Noelle. I'm going to go back in the comments with you.
I know we're going to have to. Yeah. So I just want to say to the audience, I'm sorry. We will go back in the comments. We will respond afterwards. And again, like I said, I'm really sorry that I was unable to see them. But any last, before we tip off the end of this hour, any last minute tips or insights that you both may have to share to the group today?
In terms for nurses and
anything that comes to your mind.
Anything. Wow. Okay. I would say what you think is mundane and everybody can do could potentially be your next business idea. Because if that thing that you do naturally is something which is a big problem to somebody else and they're willing to pay you a lot of money to solve it, then why not? So I heard this from somebody. They said, try and solve a $100,000 problem for $5,000, $10,000, whatever it might be. And it's an interesting way to think about it, because then it becomes a no-brainer, right? So, and we forget, you know, for the right person, what's inside of us already, we've already got it. We're all great at something. But like Shabnam said, sometimes we're being conditioned to believe we're not.
Awesome.
Or we've been in an environment where we've felt suppressed and don't feel like ourselves. So don't forget that you've got a gift, and don't forget that there could be a way to monetize it. It's just finding somebody who is, or the right individuals and group of people who are willing to pay you to actually solve that problem.
Awesome. Thank you. Shabnam?
100% agree with what Ravi just said. And once you do that, the second thing is, and I think this is something that isn't talked about enough in the entrepreneurial world or even the nursing world or any world, is that start cultivating the most amazing amount of compassion for yourself, because you are going to screw up. Guaranteed. You know, you're not going to have a linear journey of like, oh, I've had a great idea and these are the steps I'm going to take, and then I'm going to make a massive amount of money and then I'm going to be successful. You are going to screw up. We all do. And when we screw up, if we don't have any compassion for ourselves, that's when all the horrible negative self-talk comes and say, who are you to think that you could do this? And this is when the imposter syndrome comes in and all the horrible negative feelings come in. And that's when you're either going to make or break. So that's the point, is that more than anything else, be ready to give yourself, and talking, because we're talking to a lot of nurses, and even if you're not nurses, but you have that compassion inside you, because you show that every single day in what you do. Turn that around on yourself, because you're going to need it. You're going to need to turn around and say, you know what? Good job. It doesn't matter. You messed up. That's okay, honey. It's okay. Because now we've learned, and we're not going to do that again. This is what we're going to do. So be patient. Don't expect massive, ROI on everything you do. Expect that you're going to mess up. Crap's going to, go wrong. Be there for yourself, because all of a sudden you're not within that framework where you've got a leader, a manager who's going to say, yeah, tick mark on your, performance review. You're the person giving yourself a performance review. Give yourself an honest performance review. Say, yeah, you know what? You did your best. You might have messed up on this. That's okay.
Awesome.
Go and have a little rest now. That's okay. We're going to start again tomorrow. Give yourself a lot of love. That would be the biggest thing that I would say.
Oh, I love it. And thank you both. I appreciate you both so much for coming on today's show. And just for everybody out there in the audience, stay tuned for next week, because this conversation is going to almost be to be continued into next week, as I bring on nursing students and new graduate nurses to talk about a day in a life of where they're at now and what the future of retention looks like for a new grad nurse and a bedside nurse right now, a novice nurse, I should say, through the eyes of them. So stay tuned for next week's show, and thank you both so much for coming on. I appreciate you both. Thank you.
Thank you, Noelle. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Oh, Ravi's gone. Are we still live?
We might be.
Yes, we're still live.
Yes, we're still live.
Thank you so much. It's been so fun doing this, and so lovely that we met through LinkedIn. It's been fantastic.
It has been, and really both brought such insight to the show. And I think it's so important, because, it really, like I said, everyone is going through similar and the same things, regardless of the profession that you're in, but we can all help each other out. And I think that's really the take home message to that.
Absolutely, because what do we all have